What's cracking, fish tube? It's me, the Biz, Fishy Biz. You guys already know. Listen, I'm back. I told you I'd be back. And here I am with another installment of Simple Fish Keeping with one question and one question only. And that question is, what combination of fish have you put in the tank that worked for you, but not traditional for the hobby? Maybe was frowned upon by a few people. I know you got one, so I want to hear about it. And so does everybody else. So without further ado, let's answer the question by my all-star panelists.
I used to keep clown loaches together with African cichlids. I had them together for about 5 years. They worked out very, very well. The cichlids left the clown loaches alone. The clown loaches would chase the cichlids occasionally. Clown loaches have little barbs that come out of the side of their sides that can really poke a fish. And so the cichlids would leave the clown loaches alone. They added a lot of color, a lot of fun to the tank. Traditional fish keepers don't like to see them together because the loaches come from a lower pH, right? A softer water. So they thought that was not necessarily a good combination, but I found that it worked, and it worked over a very long period of time. So I liked it, and so that was the combination of fish I had together that were not traditional. Some people ragged me a little bit about it, but around 5 years of them living together successfully, peacefully, very colored up, very active, people didn't rag on me too much. Or maybe the ones that ragged on me just unsubscribed. So that's good for you, Drew. Hope it works out. And thank you for inviting me to participate in this. It's appreciated. And Fishy Biz rocks. Thanks.
Combination of fish that has worked for my tank that not everyone would agree with. This is going to divide half of you. I had a fish tank for a while with a Siamese fighting fish or a Betta fish with shrimp, which, to be honest, at the time I thought, well, I can't see any issues, nothing's happening. It's sort of backing up that they're fine together, don't worry about it. So a lot of people do keep Bettas with shrimp. I honestly don't think you should do it. In my experience, after a few months, I came in and found my Betta laying on the bottom of the fish tank with half a yellow cherry shrimp hanging out of its mouth. I got him out of the tank and just startled him enough that he ended up letting go of the other half of the shrimp. So the shrimp didn't make it, but the Betta did, luckily. But after that, I never kept him with shrimp again. So can you do it? I don't know. I could be irresponsible to say yeah, because you're putting your shrimp's lives at risk. And in my case, almost lost the Betta as well. But look, some people are going to do it, some people aren't. It worked for me for a while, but I would always be worried about that tank if I tried to do that again. I've got to say thanks to Fishy Biz. I really appreciate you including me in this. I watched the first video with all the big YouTubers and all the guys that I know as well from the fish fam, so it's really exciting to be a part of it with you all. You might not even release this part in your video, but this is a special thank you to you. Really appreciate you thinking about me. And if you haven't heard of the Aquamate channel before, jump over, give us a look. YouTuber from down under, and I love keeping fish just as much as most of you guys. So hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
The question is, have you ever had a combination of fish in your tank that doesn't traditionally work out so well? And it's not here in my fish room. It's technically my dad's tank at my parents' house, but he has a tank with 6 angelfish, I believe, and a whole bunch of neon tetra, and I have not a clue how he does it. The angelfish have actually bred at one point, and I don't know how it works so well. It's kind of a mess. It's got algae built up over time. They're very well fed, and we do water changes on that tank because he is disabled, and we do water changes on that tank probably 2 or 3 times a month, but that's about it. And everything is growing, they're happy, and they get along great. And again, I haven't personally had that type of combination work in my fish room, but I do help out with the tank at my parents' house.
Yes, I do bettas and I do community fish. So from what I found out is if you have one more semi-aggressive fish, like the Betta is actually hiding in here, and I do a lot of tetras or schooling fish, they work very well together. So I have it as a shoal fish. So what I normally do is I have whatever my community fish are. The Betta is usually the opposite color. So that's what I do. Thanks for listening to me and the 3 questions given to me. I want to thank you guys all, and hit me up.
Have I ever had a combination of fish that people thought to themselves, "No, you're not supposed to do that"? Or that's funny because I don't really believe in the word can't when it comes to aquariums for the most part. With a little bit of thought and understanding of the needs of the individual fish, I believe you can do anything. But I will say this. I get the most head scratches whenever I put my angels with larger, more aggressive Central and South Americans. People think angels are, punk fish because they're beautiful. But the fact is, they're still cichlids. Now, in a fight, most of the time, like for a Jack Dempsey and an angel or a Firemouth and an angel, yeah, the angel will get whooped up on. But here's my rationale behind why they don't normally get whooped up on. Most fish are very aggressive for breeding purposes and territory or dominance. Some of these fish, they do not see an angelfish as any type of competition towards any of those things because the angelfish looks so out of the ordinary to a regular, oval-shaped fish. So I think angelfish get away with being a cichlid that can be looked over by other more aggressive cichlids because of their oddball shape. But yeah, when I put angels with aggressive fish, people think, oh, you can't do that because normally, they say angels and tetras and stuff, right? But nah, angels and more aggressive cichlids, I think, is the only combination that people would think you can't do that, but I do successfully. Not because I'm all that. I am all that. I am.
A tank setup that's worked for me but goes against what you might call the norm. I love this question because I have a few of those, but I never waste an opportunity to talk about what I've dubbed the livebearer mosh pit. It's a 40 breeder chock full of plants and guppies and platies and cherry shrimp and some corridoras as well. A lot of people are afraid of guppy populations getting out of control in their tanks. And I was afraid of that too at first because we all kind of have this visual of what an overstocked tank looks like. And I've posted this tank on forums and Facebook groups before, and the reactions range from bewilderment to pure outrage. You probably wouldn't intentionally stock your tank with this many fish, but here we are anyway. And I've done nothing at all to keep the population and breeding down other than feeding a maximum amount of food and never more than what the filtration could handle in the form of decomposed food or fish waste. I don't separate fry or cull them unless there's an obvious deformity or health issue, which is actually pretty rare. Every now and then I will give some of the guppies to the school where my wife teaches or to other hobbyists, but the population never looks any smaller or any bigger, and it doesn't take but maybe a month to just get the numbers back to where they were before. It's a very healthy tank, and there's hardly any decomposing waste or anything filthy on the surfaces, and the plants keep the nitrates and any other dissolved organics in check. And I never have to clean inside the tank because guppies are pretty much the best cleaning fish ever. This is probably my easiest tank in the house and definitely the most fun.
Hello everyone, this is Jason from ScienceGal Aquatics. And so what were some fish combinations that worked for us, but they might not work for other people? And in fact, I probably wouldn't recommend them. In our 125 gallon, we had 2 very large fish. One of them was a full-grown Oscar at about 13 inches or so. The other one was about an 18-inch tilapia. Both of those fish were in with an assortment of African peacocks, not because we necessarily set up the tank that way to begin with. It was just one of those things that kind of happened. What's interesting is not only did those fish get along and they really left each other alone for years, the African cichlids were actually breeding in that tank, and it was actually one of our more productive tanks when it came to fish breeding, provided that we removed most of the fry. I think the reason for that was the order in which we added those fish, the size difference, and the fact that those fish were relatively well fed, and so their prey drive on one another was greatly reduced. And so while it was a tank that worked for us, again, it's not a tank that I would recommend people go out and try, but it is a strange thing that happened in our fish room, and it worked for many years.
When I first saw this question, I knew exactly what combination of fish and what tank I was going to talk about. It's a tank I currently have. It's the 10-gallon that sits right next to me on my desk. So this tank, I've been told in multiple Facebook groups, in streams, that those fish can't go together. That's not gonna last. That's a bad matchup. So, starting off, we first of all have a beta and Danios in the tank, which a lot of people will tell you can't go together because temperatures need to be so drastically different for them. The Danios are cooler water fish, betas like warmer water. So that's starting off right there, number one, Danios and betas. But that's not all that's in the tank. I've also got a honey gourami in the tank with the betas and the Danios. And I didn't know this, but because gouramis and betas are so closely related, since they're both anabanchoids, they apparently will be territorial to each other. So it'll be like having two male betas in the tank. I've been extremely lucky that my honey gourami and my beta keep to themselves. They've never once, fought each other or been super territorial. They stay to their own spots, and they've just been fine. I've never had any issues with them. The tank also has some corridors in it, so all those together, combo you wouldn't normally do. I didn't know about the gourami and beta thing either, so that's one that's worked for me. It's also a 10-gallon, so I've also got another strike against me that it's decently overstocked for the size tank. I'm thinking that it's only worked so well because the tank is so heavily planted. There's so many plants in it that everybody can, hide and get away from each other. So yeah, my combo is honey gourami, beta, and Danios.
What's up, guys? Steve from Warrior Planet Tanks. So what's the craziest combination of fish I kept together? There would be frondom by the hobby. Okay, so the first one is fancy goldfish and turtles. I had that when I was a kid, saw it in a book, figured I would try it, and it worked out. The tank was too small for the goldfish and the turtles, but the combination, they got along nonetheless. The second one, same thing, it involved turtles. It was actually a tank that I had set aside. With my turtles in it, I put fish in there that were unwanted. Those fish were the Buenos Aires tetras, believe it or not, guppies, believe it or not, and goldfish, believe it or not, and killifish that were bycatch with feeders. So let me explain the goldfish part. The goldfish were feeders. Originally, it's the ones that made the cut, think Hunger Games, if you will. The turtles figured they was homies. I could go purchase feeder goldfish, place them in there, they would be eaten immediately, but those fish remained in there. The Buenos Aires tetras, of course, the turtles couldn't catch them to eat them, and the other two were too small to catch and eat as well. They all thrived together in the tank harmoniously, and it was a cool combination. When I moved to my current location, where I'm at now, I ended up giving some of those fish to Jess from Jess Shrimp Granny. They were the Buenos Aires tetras, and she can attest to that very fact. Y'all have a good one. This is Steve from Warrior Planet Tanks.
I have not ever put fish together that shouldn't be together because I do everything perfectly. So I really can't answer this question. Obviously that's not true. But I am struggling to figure out one that is worthy of talking about. And the only one that I can really think of actually wasn't my fault. It was my nephew's. My nephew got into fish keeping when he was like 13 years old. It ran its course for a couple of years. He did a really good job with it. And then he was out. And I inherited his fish. And in that tank was a blood parrot, a Jack Dempsey, a rainbow shark, and a blue Socolify, a cobalt blue zebra. These are 4 fish. I mean, the Jack Dempsey and the blood parrot, they're fine. But the others, you would never imagine putting all of those fish into one tank. Basically what happened is my nephew went to the store, ignored all of my advice. He went to the store and he was like, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one, and I like that one. And he bought it. And he bought them with his own money. I think he was cutting grass or something to make the money to buy these fish. And he put them in there, and guess what? They were all fine. They got along perfectly fine. They didn't beat each other up. They didn't hurt each other at all. And they were in that tank for 2 years by themselves. Or together, not by themselves. That wouldn't make sense. But they were together for 2 years. They started out small, grew up to be full size, and they were perfectly fine. And he gave me those fish and the tank and everything. He was just basically out. He's like, I'm done. And I didn't have the heart to break them up. So we kept them all together. And I had them for another 3 or 4 years together in a tank, and they did fine. So you know what? The rule books are there for a reason. It's a good guideline, but sometimes what the rule book says, you can do things differently from what the rule book says. And sometimes it'll work out. Sometimes it won't though, so be careful.
Yeah, it's Bartholomew from Buffalo. I ain't got much time, so I'm gonna just tell you what's going on. Buffalo fish keeping, yeah, whatever. So look, I had an mbuna tank and I had a puffer tank, and I had to mix them both together because I had to move the tanks, right? And the reason I did that was because, well, you know, the mbuna are pretty aggressive. But the puffers, you know, they'll chew your face off. So I figured, you know, they would be able to hold their own in that mbuna tank, and maybe the mbunas will leave them alone, or, you know, might get their face chewed off. So what happened was I put them in there and I recorded them for about a week or so. Made sure I took a roll of all the fish. And it worked out all right, even though I got a lot of flack and saying that this was going to happen and you're going to lose all those fish in a couple of hours and all of that. But it worked out for a little while. I think I just lost a half of a clown loach. We affectionately call them Halfy. And once I was able to rehome those puffers, they were doing great. So yeah, Bartholomew from Buffalo. Mbunas in the puffer tank, or the puffers in the mbuna tank. I ain't got much time for this. I gotta go. All right, invited Bartholomew to the cast. Larry, did you invite Bartholomew? Dude is nuts. Never again. Not on here. All right. There you have it. An all-star cast for you. All-star panel guest with one question and one question only answered just for you. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out all of the Simple Fish Keepings by all of the Simple Fish Keeping makers. Just look for the logo and know that it's AG. All good. I'm also going to put some at the ending credits so that you could just tap on them and enjoy. Well, that's my time. And I'm out. Peace.